The Rundown, Part 18, a Farlost story by John Miro.
Twilight fell upon the darkening road. I found myself again alone. Street lights went out by one, by two, by three. Now reveled in the shadows that had grown. Yes, I reveled in the darkness I had known.
On the outskirts of Piertown, where scrub brush took over from factory buildings, a black luxury passenger carrier idled. In the shadow of a large nearby rock, a plume of dust blew upwards. The dirt dropped away, and Martin Ladoucer stepped out of the resulting hole in the ground. The car door opened as Martin approached, brushing the lapels of his gray suit. The car rose smoothly into the air the moment Martin's door whispered closed behind him. Bennett sat on the far side of the back compartment, immersed in his black book. Photos and timelines projected from the book filled the air around him. His number two leaned back into the plush leather seat with a sigh, smoothing his tie. Nice speech at the hospital. Seconds of silence passed in which Martin made himself comfortable, scooting low and pushing the seat further back. Finally, Underwood mumbled, "Where are we with Ada?" Martin pursed his lips, shrugged. Tricky to read 'em these days. A chuckle from Underwood. I should think so. What with he becoming a she so recently. Bennett shut his book. The holograms around him winked out. Sweeten the offer. I want Bird out of town. Have the man who escorted him through the tunnels leave, too. All expenses paid, of course. He's been loyal. Tell him we'll take good care of his family, but make it clear he's going. Martin's chin bobbed, affirming he understood. Underwood noticed a sliver of tension where anyone else would only see Ladoucer splayed out, apparently boneless, on the seat. He cocked an eyebrow, curious. What is it? Why set up Usher to transport Bird? And why do you want to kill Usher now he survived the hit? He saved your life, after all. Bennett's lips tightened. When Usher saved my life last year, the man they sent to kill me said something to him. Since then, he's been looking into me, trying to connect dots I will not have connected. Could be a problem, Martin yawned. He's high profile, decorated. His dad was a hero in the Civil War. Bennett slapped the leather-bound black book against his knee. Yes, Martin, Nicodemus Usher is a good man. He's brave, loyal, tenacious, principled. Bennett looked across at his number two. Do you think a man like that will back down when he's caught a whiff of something off? Perhaps if I asked him especially politely. Martin's nose dipped. The omnipresent glow from behind his dark glasses was dim, and he looked for all the world like a man asleep. Seconds ticked by in silence as the driverless car navigated itself 70 meters above the outskirts of Piertown towards the skyscrapers of Metro. Maybe he's caught selling drugs. Taking a bribe? Gets him kicked off the force. Bennett shook his head. I considered it. Usher would find a way to come after me even without a badge. And honest men always know someone who'll ignore a smear job and hear the real story. Bennett leaned toward Martin, wiggling his fingers beside his temple. Martin nodded, pulling his glasses off his own face. What happens in the coming days will decide Lochlaw's fate for a generation, Martin. I won't risk millions of lives for the sake of one good man. Martin nodded. I'll see to it, Bennett. Murdo will get the message. An unguarded look of gratitude crossed Bennett Underwood's face. He bumped the side of his fist onto Martin's knee. Then he sat back and reopened his little black book. Sound stabbed her ears. Jane half woke, growling, and swung for the alarm clock. Her fist slammed down on the plastic square on the left-hand nightstand. The high, fast beep kept bleeding in her ears. Jane poked buttons, eyes still wedged shut. No dice. Finally, she picked up the clock and slammed it upside down back on top of the nightstand. The beeping continued. She buried her face in the pillow and whimpered. "Rise and shine, partner," she heard her own voice say. "Oh, I took the liberty of turning off the snooze button." Jane burrowed her head further under the pillow. "Go away." The light in the room got brighter. Rumbling bass and a shrieking voice filled the room. Sound waves hammered through the sleep, and Jane jumped off the bed, eyes wide, to face herself. A composed Jane, standing straight and tall, stood in front of her. This version of herself wore a silk robe, and her black hair was silky smooth and combed over her shaven left temple. Jane looked into this mirror of projected light, flickering subtly when she walked closer, stepping between the holographic projector built into the old-fashioned alarm clock at her bedside. "Led Zeppelin," the recorded version of herself said, her lips curling in a smile. "A particular favorite of Duncan's. He loved old things from home," she said fondly. Jane rubbed her eyes and sat back on the bed. "Ada," she growled petulantly, her memories of the last few weeks flooding back. She swiped her hand at the alarm clock, and blessedly the discordant wailing of, was that a man or a woman, she wondered, cut off mid-word. She'd never had a chance to know Duncan. Ada had been steering his body when she'd come across them, attacked and dying in that alley. She looked around the room. Duncan's room. She felt momentarily guilty for moving into the place. It felt a little like a graveyard, but Ada told him that was how Duncan would have wanted it. As it did every morning, she had an overwhelming moment of surprise at how much changed in her life in just a few short weeks, and how quickly she'd gotten used to being woken up by recorded greetings from the hide time-sharing her body. "As you can probably see, looking around," her voice said from the projection, "he could never let things go." The room was packed with recreations of entertainment devices from Earth, boxy tube televisions, posters of rock bands and movies long gone, a guitar propped in the corner by the closet, and books and magazines. Actual recreations with still pages, imprinted with still images and text. She grinned. The place was a mess, and no better for Jane's own slovenly ways. But there was something soothing about the place. The holographic her, or Ada, rather, stared around the room wearing a similar look. Jane looked into the open closet, saw Ada's silk robe hanging there, the same one she was wearing now in the hologram. She'd gotten past the strangeness of sharing a body far faster than she'd imagined, and not only because Ada's height metabolism fixed her insides and pushed back her expiry date from sometime this year to a good long time off. Ada had opened his home, his wallet, his heart, and all his secrets to her. Made her family. No secrets, complete trust. Those were things Jane had never known. And, she admitted to herself, inheriting a life of danger and excitement didn't hurt. Contrary to the many things changing in her since Ada moved in, her attraction to physical conflict and mental puzzles were the same as ever. Stronger, perhaps, for being shared by her new life partner. "I apologize for speeding you to consciousness," Ada said, looking considerably more together than Jane ever remembered feeling. "Your body only thinks it needs as much sleep as it used to, and today I don't have the luxury of humoring it." Jane leaned forward, paying attention now. The rude awakening, and something in Ada's expression, let her know that something was up. Ada had told her so much about his past, about the roadhouse, about their unique role in keeping Locklaw running smoothly, but she was aching for specifics. The Hyde insisted on taking her education slow to allow her time to acclimate to this new life. From the sounds of it, something had sped up the timetable. "About time," she breathed with relief. "Spillane told me you weren't pleased with the clothes I had him pick up for you. I appreciate you staying off the streets while we settle into our new existence, even if Semat's called off his contract on you. It's important. You're not We are not whole yet." Jane understood. The hide was a foreign body, expending a great deal of time and energy convincing Jane's body not to reject it. Wrapping her head around being healthy again was hard enough. She had to admit, despite her frustration with taking her education slowly, that there was a steep learning curve to becoming a hundreds-year-old information broker in the criminal underground. Ada paced a few steps either way before the bed. "I told you not to be surprised to see your tastes are changing. Your biology, even your subconscious, is tied to mine." He laughed lightly, patting their belly. "That's a two-way street, by the way. Your taste buds are getting the better of me." Jane remembered the flying dream, soaring over an ancient forest, chasing her laughing children. She smiled, calm spreading throughout her body. "Tell me about it," she murmured, standing and stretching, luxuriating in the fact her body no longer suffered from the morning trembles. "I have had the most irrational cravings for, what was it you called it? Street meat," Ada chuckled. "I sent Spillane out twice today. He's worried about my cholesterol, I think." Ada stopped pacing, his face turning serious, his eyes unfocusing as his thoughts went inwards. "We need more time to understand our new life, but we don't have it. We have a decision to make. Lives are at stake. In fact, a great many lives may be at stake, and Jane, one of those lives, is Nicodemus Usher's." You have been listening to The Rundown, a Farlost story, written by John Miro. Learn more at servingworlds.com. Opening music, Everything Is Not What It Appears, kindly provided by Nate Maingard at natemaingard.com. Closing music, Full On, by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. If you like what you hear, you can become a patron and support more stories at patreon.com/servingworlds. Thanks for listening. See you next week.